Have you ever been told that being vulnerable makes you weak? What if I told you that the opposite is true? It is. It is. It definitely is. Emotional vulnerability is not a weakness, it is the key to deeper connections, self acceptance, and true healing. Let's dive into what really means to be emotionally vulnerable, and how to embrace it. Okay. By definition, emotional vulnerability is the willingness to share your true feelings, thoughts, and experiences, even when it feels uncomfortable. I know. That's the part. The vulnerability part is the uncomfortable part. It is the sitting with those feelings that come up. I just did a video yesterday. I posted on my social media, being still and quiet for 1 minute. If you could be still and quiet for 1 minute, you would be alone quietly with yourself. Because I know you're like, well, an authentic connection with yourself and others, myself, But if you're still and quiet with yourself for 1 minute, whatever rises to the surface is what you'll be engaging with. Now, with another person, of course, you think about authentic connections and what that would feel like and how they're looking at you, their body language as you're sharing whatever you're sharing. But with yourself, you think, oh, I'm good with me. Whatever, it's me. I'm okay. But some people are not as comfortable with themselves as you think they would be. And emotional vulnerability is a two-way street, and both of those things play a role. You personally being vulnerable with yourself and honest, and then being vulnerable with other people. For instance, I am an author. I wrote a book. And in my book, Bear, if you haven't got a copy, it's available wherever books are sold. I share several facets of my life, some of my poetry, and some of the life lessons that God taught me along the way. Well, in sharing those life lessons, I had to share the thing that got me in a situation where I needed to learn the lesson. The book opens talking about a story about me and how I went into homelessness. And now, anywhere in the world, somebody can go into a bookstore or a library and find my book and on digital platforms and see those vulnerabilities. I'm even a part of another book called Take Me With You, where I share a story about my mom. This is not my book, but it's my section is called Mother's Unknown Prayers, and it's a story about, I wonder what my mother prayed for when me and my brothers were in foster care. That is an emotionally vulnerable conversation. However, it is not an overshare, as we are unfortunately privy to on social media and the internet regularly. So, the difference in oversharing and vulnerability. Let's talk about it. Oversharing is, that should be private. It's extremely intimate, and everybody should not be witnessing this conversation, this experience, this moment, or know the information that you're sharing about your spouse, your kids, your parents, your job, your friends, whoever it is. But vulnerability is you opening yourself up as you have vetted and or discerned and trust, this is a safe space. This is somebody who I believe would not use this against me. But even if they didn't, you've done the work in yourself that if they did, it wouldn't destroy you. It may feel like a betrayal, it may be discerning, but it wouldn't be devastating. They can be trusted with your truth. That's how you know. And even in that facet, like, I don't know every person who's going to pick up my book. I don't know every person who's watching this YouTube video or listen to this podcast. But I trust myself enough to know that whatever I'm sharing in this instant is not something that I'm concerned about being crushed by. But I can still be authentic and vulnerable in these sessions, in these moments. So, how do you deal with the discomfort? You have to embrace it. It's not a trick you can do or to psych yourself out. Like, maybe if I was a hypnotist or something, I could give you something else to do, but I can't. So all I can tell you is that you have to sit in that. That's what I meant by the 1 minute of being still and quiet. Even with yourself, you have to sit in the discomfort. And the discomfort of vulnerability is not just for you to be exposed, but for you to get the authenticity back in return. It's an invitation. The vulnerability is an invitation and an offer to build community, to strengthen a relationship, to grow as a person, to grow as a couple, to grow as a team. Even in leadership, you have to be able to be vulnerable. So when you do this, because vulnerability gives you an advantage, it does. It gives you an advantage as far as the deeper connections you're going to have, whether it's with your staff, your spouse, your kids, your mate, or yourself, your parents. But you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to sit in the discomfort, but you have to be willing to also, and I don't want to just keep talking about discomfort because that might turn you off. But it's an invitation. It's an invitation to say, I want more of this with you. Whatever this is, I want more of it with you. And I'm open to being open to this, for lack of better terms. Think of it as an invitation and an offer. I'm willing to exchange this moment of vulnerability with you for more of what we already have, and or to make what we have better. So when you're having a conversation, if you're part of my email newsletter or you have signed up, you get a free guide that shows you how to be emotionally, use your full emotional vocabulary. And it gives you a vocabulary wheel so you're able to express yourself and emote the things beyond happy, glad, sad, or mad. And so with that vulnerability comes conversation and expression. And so you have the right words to share. So with that vulnerability, you can say things like, I enjoy the way you care for me. I've never experienced somebody being this attentive. Versus, I love you. Thank you. I appreciate you. You can go a little bit deeper so those connections are strengthened. And that is how vulnerability gives you an advantage, because now you've opened a door. Now you've offered something, or you've invited somebody else to share something that now will make that connection stronger. It also plays a really big role in confronting your hidden emotions and trauma. I know, which leads to deeper self awareness and emotional freedom. So when you think about the words emotional vulnerability, again, it's not just for other people outside of you. It's also for you. It also gives you an advantage to become a better version of yourself. When you are able to express yourself more clearly, succinctly, it also doesn't leave room for error because miscommunication at home, at work, anywhere is what makes us all falter. And that serves nobody. So, when you are able to be more self aware, have emotional freedom, because you're not trapped by the things that have plagued you in the past or the that critic in your head that is giving you all the wrong information, you are able to be more effective. You're able to run your company better. Even if you're a solopreneur like me, you are now making better decisions. You don't have decision fatigue. You are not second guessing yourself. You're not overthinking. Anybody else out there, you're not overthinking. You're clear. Your clarity is now set because you have done the work and expose yourself to, okay, well, when I do these things, or I say this, or I show up on camera this way, or I speak in a microphone this way, or I sound timid, or I'm not engaged as I would like to be with my guests or friends or clients or customers, this emotional vulnerability strengthens you, that you are able to make better decisions. You are able to engage. You are able to go out and get those leads with clients. You are now not being a behind the scenes, I just want to take a course and say I'm doing the work when I'm really not doing the work type of thing. You're able to get yourself out there. So, what are some steps that you can do to have healthy vulnerability? I got three. One, start small. Save spaces to share your emotions. Where are they? Identify those people and places that you know, no matter what, this is the person who will see your stuff but not judge your stuff and help you move through that stuff, and also celebrate you as you evolve. Because there's another thing in giving people your stuff and they just hold it and carry it around but never acknowledge that they see you getting better or changing or growing or evolving. They just going along for the get along. Like they're not that you need a cheerleader, but it's great if you have them. And then cheer for yourself. You have to celebrate the small wins along the way. Like if you see yourself get triggered, but you don't respond the same way this time, that's something to celebrate. One, it means your awareness has heightened, and two, the trigger no longer has control over you. You saw the trigger, you identified it, and you responded differently instead of reacting irrationally. That is something definitely to celebrate. The second thing is to recognize that vulnerability is a sign of strength, not weakness. Like I just talked about, it's a strength, it's an advantage. It gives you an advantage over other people. Where if you're emotionally vulnerable and you give an offer and or invite somebody and they accept, you know you have took that conversation, experience, or opportunity to another level. Where somebody else who comes in who is rash, harsh, not open, closed off, body language shows it, brain mind somewhere else, distracted, guarded body language, then you know that this deal, this relationship, this opportunity, this conversation is probably going nowhere. So you go in the direction of the person who gave you the invitation or the offer with their emotional vulnerability and intentional effort to deepen this relationship. Because the best sign of transformation is changed behavior. Now, I will say side note on behavior, which I probably have mentioned in the episode and or will do in the future. Behavior modification is not always transformation. Yes, I know that's a whole, I didn't mean to make it a bar, but it is. Behavior modification is not the only sign of transformation. Your words and your actions lining up for a little while, like it's continue, like a repeatable thing you're doing, that you can see the fruit of the change behavior consistently in all areas and facets, not just when it's brought up or when we have a conversation about it or when I tell you it makes me uncomfortable or when I tell you I disagree, but that it is a continual personal effort. You are invested in the change, not because I initiated and told you I wanted the change. But that's a whole nother episode. But I just wanted to throw that in there because it came up. So I just wanted to say that. And then the third thing is to build trust in yourself and others by being consistent and intentional. Like I just said. See what I'm saying? It all goes together. Um, so trusting yourself, which is huge because self betrayal is the worst betrayal. And I say it all the time, and I say it because I want to reiterate it. Self betrayal is the worst betrayal because it's easy to point the finger out and blame people when things go wrong, when it doesn't work out, and all that. Getting honest about your role and your own role in your suffering is a huge milestone as well. However, trusting yourself when you're making decisions is important, but you have to be vulnerable and honest with yourself that if this isn't working, if this isn't a good idea, if this job no longer serves me, if this relationship isn't beneficial to us both, and I don't mean like tit for tat, money, exchange, transactional, I mean beneficial as does it feed my soul? Does it minister to me? Does it help me grow intellectually? Does it help me grow emotionally? Do I feel like I'm heard? Do I feel like I'm seen? Am I valued in this relationship? And the relationship could be romantic, it could be platonic, it could be your coworker to coworker, employee to employer, peers across the table. It could be any relationship, even parent to child and child to parent. As parents, we are given children by God to raise and nurture here on earth. They belong to God. That's what I believe. I'm not asking you to believe it, but that's what I believe. And we are to steward them until a particular extent, and we remain their parents for eternity. However, children do need to be heard. We parents need to be honored, and children need to be heard. If a child is presenting something to you and they're being vulnerable, you need to also have that same level of vulnerability with that child. Because, as my daughter's big mama would say, you don't know how to be a parent until you become a grandparent. And even then, there's no manual on a child because they come with their own personality, their own thoughts, their own instincts. The environment around them shapes them. Something you may say, do, or be may be something that is discouraging. And that level of vulnerability and having a conversation between parent and child is an intimate one because 90% of the time, your child is a mirror of you. You're going to see you in that kid, even the parts of you that your parents wasn't too proud of either. So, same level of emotional vulnerability. So, but being consistent and intentional, like I said about the behavior modification, is not just proof of transformation. Just because you decide to stop doing a thing in a behavior, who you become in changing that behavior is what's really important. Are you a person who is willing to give this thing up for this thing over here, which will change your behavior? Not, I'm going to change my behavior because you don't like it, but I still really want to do it. So now I end up developing resentment for you because you asked me to change it. I didn't want to change it. So am I willing to change this to be a better version of myself for what this thing means to me? For instance, I'll use my life as an example, as I always do, and as God has designed my life for. My mother, my biological mother, God rest her beautiful soul, was a heroin addict when I was a kid. I ended up in foster care, and so my brothers and I ended up in foster care due to those choices. those choices ended up having some negative things happen to me. My mother quit heroin cold turkey to get her life together because she wanted her children back in her life. That was her choice. She thought she was going down a road clearly that was not healthy and was not beneficial to her. And when she couldn't kill herself to get out of it, she decided, I need to make some changes. I want my family back. That's a change behavior, but the motive behind the change behavior was the thing, not just changing the behavior. See where I'm going here? The motive, your intent, intentional. That is the key word. Intentional, consistent. You have to be intentional and then know what your intent. What is your why behind the vulnerability? Am I being vulnerable because I'm trying to get something out of you, which it means you're still pretending anyway. You're not really being vulnerable. So, if your intent is to deepen the relationship, is to have an authentic connection, be more open, engage, be more courageous in your conversations, have real, true, measurable growth and healing. If you are having a battle with fear and you want to get out of that, if you are dealing with decision fatigue, if you are not sure how you can be stronger in this area, this is what you want to lean into. Again, the three things. Start small, safe spaces where you can show your emotions. Recognize that vulnerability is a sign of strength and not a weakness. And build trust in yourself and others by being consistent and intentional. And you will walk away with vulnerability as a strength and practical tools to learn how to take actionable steps to express yourself in healthy ways, like journaling, to building safe relationships. You will have deeper healing. So you will discover how to embrace your vulnerability and accelerate your journey towards emotional freedom and self worth. And that is the answer to what does emotional vulnerability mean? And what does it look like? And I hope that your relationships are deeper because of this episode. I hope that you are stronger and strengthened. I hope you are on your road to freedom in your healing. And as always, until next time, love well.